Greetings of peace to all of you. Welcome to this panel on interfaith experiences from the Lutheran Communion. We have gathered 3 people from the Lutheran Communion who are engaged directly in interreligious relations. They are from different contexts, from Nigeria, from Tanzania, and from the United States. We have in the Lutheran Communion really a rich expertise of relating with people of other faiths. This is on a local level, on a national level, and also on an international level. We have invited 3 people that I will now introduce to you to speak about their concrete experiences in interfaith relations, how these relations transform conflicts, how these relations deepen our engagement with one another. There is Helen Haggai from Nigeria. She is a peace builder working with the Tekan Peace Desk in Jos, Nigeria. She holds a Bachelor in Education and a Master's in Public Administration and has been working in this area with Tekan Peace now for 2.5 years. The second one is Reverend Lusungu Mbilinyi from Tanzania. He's working at the moment in Zanzibar with the Zanzibar Interfaith Center. He is a pastor of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Tanzania, and he has done his master's degree on Christian-Muslim relations in Kenya. He is working especially with youth in the Zanzibar Interfaith Center and also with the new study department that they are building up at the moment. And our third person is Kathryn Lohre from the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. She is the Executive for Ecumenical and Interfaith Relations. She has been working for 8 years at the Harvard University as Assistant Director of the Pluralism Project, and also has been for 2 years the President of the National Council of Churches in the United States. So as you can see, all these people bring a rich background in work on grassroots, but also in the academic arena, and I'm inviting now them to present their experience. First of all, I would like to ask Helen. Helen, you're working in Jos. What is the situation at the moment there, and how does your program respond to this situation?
At the moment, good afternoon. It's a privilege for me to be on this platform to discuss what Tekan Peace Desk has been doing in the past 7 years. But actually, we've been working with young people for the past 2.5 years. Actually, what we've been doing in Jos is that we're trying to respond to the ethno-religious crisis that has engulfed the town of Jos for the past 11 years. And the city has been divided into 2, where the Muslims live differently and the Christians live differently. So with our partnership with the Lutheran World Federation has made us now look at what has to do was that because of the lack of trust and the lack of confidence that has engulfed in the peace meeting, and one of the ways we said we wanted to intervene was to look at what would be the entry point for us. And we felt that the most important entry point would be working with the youths, because most times youths are used as foot soldiers in most of these violent crises. And so what we did was that we brought the Christian youths, the Muslim youths, both men, young men and young women. And we sat with them for 2 days. And after sitting with them, for the fact that they agreed to come and sit with us was wonderful. And so we sat with them for 2 days, and after sitting with them for 2 days, all of us decided that they needed to go back and find a project. Each of the groups, we shared them into 4 groups. Each of the groups needs to go back and look at the very needs of their own communities. We shared them according to communities so that they will go back to their different communities and look at the needs of that particular communities. And when they get the needs of that, and how will they intervene? So the 4 different groups made up of 4 different communities brought out issues from their own communities and how they would intervene. For 2 of these communities, they said that they needed to go back to secondary schools. Secondary schools, for those of us who are in Nigeria, all over the world, people that are from the ages of 12 to 17, so that they will go and have an advocacy visit, and apart from the advocacy visit, to form peace clubs so that peace education will pass to these particular young people in the secondary school who are mostly teenagers. And so that was for 2 groups. And for one group, they identified that one of the main problems in that particular community was the use of there was substance abuse and hard drugs, the use of hard drugs. And so they looked for a way so that they would intervene. And for the 4th group, what they did was that they decided that they needed to talk to those people that were perpetrators of the evil acts in Jos. And so those were the methods that were used so that these young people could intervene in this crisis, so that gradual confidence will be built and people will begin to relate with one another as they used to do before.
Thank you very much, Helen. I think this is very important to see that you have actually involved them in the planning. You have asked them what is their need and to develop together with them the way forward.
Yes.
Now I would like to turn to Lusungu and ask him, what are you doing in Zanzibar and what is the background of your work there?
Yeah, in Zanzibar we are trying to bring together Christians and Muslims and trying to make them look at the situation in Zanzibar and see how they can respond. It was for a long time Christians and Muslims had been divided. Historically, Christians and Muslims have lived in Zanzibar for more than 500 years, because the first Muslims are believed to come to Zanzibar in the 8th century, or some say 9th century, and the first Christians came here with Vasco da Gama in 1499. But in recent years, especially from 1964 onwards, after the independence of Zanzibar and the union between Zanzibar and mainland, the relationship between Christians and Muslims has not been always the best. We had deteriorating relationships, and we could see that if we allow this deteriorating relationships to continue, things might become more and more alarming. So we decided to bring together Christians and Muslims in Zanzibar to discuss about the situation and things that are going on and make projects or programs that will help Christians and Muslims to live peacefully together. So we are working cross-cutting from top level. So we have the religious leaders committee that brings together religious leaders from Christian side and Muslim side who are meeting once in a month and discuss various projects. And this committee has subcommittees which we call local peace committee, which are about 300 around the whole island. And then we have a youth committee in Unguja and another one in Pemba. That are the 2 islands that make Zanzibar. And this youth committee also and try to plan various activities that will help to bring Christians and Muslim youth together. Some of this includes the settings that has 12 Christians, 12 Muslims, which plays now in the league. And before any game, they start with a Christian and Muslim player, and they will advertise peace. They have a great label on their chest which is written "Struggle for Peace" in Swahili, Tabikia Amani. And they have also a small movie club which they've made. They made short movies which are the longest will be 15 minutes, which are about peace. And now they have started a saving and credit society called Recover, where youth can Christian and Muslim youth can come together once in a week, meet and save money together, but also money to each other so that they can build up different economic activities that will help the youth to sustain their income. We have also started a study department where we try to bring to learn, study, and do research about various ways where people from different cultures can come together and live together in peace. We call it the Study Department for Intercultural Relations, but with a focus on Christian-Muslim relations.
Thank you very much, Lusungu. I think your example shows also that the different levels are really important, but also the regular meetings. You have implemented with some groups weekly meetings, with others monthly meetings, and that really builds up trust and relations over some time. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to move to Kathryn Lohre from the ELCA. What is the ELCA doing?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And as you alluded to, ours is perhaps a slightly different angle, because as we are a national church body, what our commitment is to cultivating and nurturing interreligious relations on all levels of our church, from the local to the national, and connected to the global church as well. And so that developed out of our church's desire to respond to Luther's anti-Judaic writings and the legacy that that created as a national church body, to both reject those and to reach out in reconciliation and relationship to our Jewish sisters and brothers. In 1994, our church adopted a declaration to the Jewish people that did just this. And so that is really the foundation of our interreligious relations. Then after 9/11, our church sought to reach out in relationship and community to our Muslim sisters and brothers, both here in the United States and globally. Our former presiding Bishop Mark Hansen, who was then the president of the Lutheran World Federation, was part of the global response to the Muslim A Common Word document. And so out of that grew our church's desire to engage more fully in Lutheran-Muslim relations. We also have a number of other multilateral and bilateral dialogues with the variety of world religions that are represented here in the United States as a result of global migration and immigration patterns over the last 30 years. We have a very multi-religious context. So that is part of our work. But most importantly, right now, our church is trying to look at the question of what is our motivation for engaging in interreligious relations as a church? What is the theological foundation on which we draw? What are the practical questions that are raised for everyday people? And how can we as a church both reflect on that and find ways and frameworks that would help us engage? So we have undertaken a case studies project to identify where interreligious work, activities, initiatives, relations are happening on the ground in the local context, but also nationally and globally, and trying to learn from those examples about best practices and challenges and key questions, so that we as a church might reflect more fully on what it means to be Christian in a multi-religious world, and how God is calling us to engage in relationships and activity with our brothers and sisters who are our neighbors.
Thank you very much, Kathryn. I think it's very important to see that how you relate actually the theological questions together with the practical questions and the relational dimension. And I think they need actually one another. You cannot do theology without relations, and in order to deepen relations, it needs to come out of a deep theological commitment. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to start a second round with all of you, asking, why do people engage in your activities? I mean, some of your activities are challenging for these people. They might be uncomfortable, calling them out of their comfort zone, endeavoring something new. Why do they engage? Lusungu, maybe you could be the first to respond to that. What is attractive about engaging in interreligious relations?
Actually, at the beginning, most of the people we are working with, it is not attractive. But with time, they get more and more interested in seeing that it is important. For us Christians, we have this belief. That is what we are always telling people, that the greatest call of Christianity is love. Jesus used to say that our identity is love. And when we love one another, it's not only you love those people who love you, but even love those who don't love you. And we are trying to actually show people again and again that Jesus did the same. He loved people like him. He loved people who were different from him. He loved people who were Jews. He healed people who were not Jews, who were from other religious background. And because of that, we are called to imitate Jesus and to do the same. And from our Muslim colleagues, they have the teaching of compassion, that the greatest thing in Islam is compassion, and Islam is all about showing compassion. and they keep on reminding each other that this is what you have to do as a good Muslim. And after a time, people are convinced that their faith background, both Christian and Muslim, requires them to be good people.
Thank you very much, Lusungu. We have some difficulties to understand you at the moment. I didn't quite get your last point, but it was very interesting to see that you reported about both, about Christian motivation and Muslim motivation into these relationships. Can I ask Helen, what are for you, the people that you work with, motivations to engage?
I didn't hear you very well.
Okay, for us as a church group, our motto is, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall become sons and daughters of God." And so one of the things that motivated us to go into interreligious activities was because of that. Secondly, for the people, that is on our own part as an organization, but for the people out there, most of the youths had two reasons for coming out. One, most of the youths that were abandoned by those people who used them. Some of them lack education, some of them don't have means of livelihood. And so because they were tired of being used and abandoned, so one of the reasons why we called on them and they came, so because they were tired. And then secondly, people just want to live normal lives. They want to live and then just enjoy life and then develop. And so one of the reasons, two of the reasons, first is because they are tired of crisis. They want to go on and to live. And secondly, they are tired of being used and abandoned. And so these were the three reasons for us as an organization, is because it is a mandate as Christians to do that. And for those young people that we have come to our meetings, is because they are tired. They want to live lives like normal human beings, and they want a real development. And so these were the reasons that made people to be attracted to our what we are doing presently.
Yeah, thank you. And Kathryn, what is it in the different committees and movements that you're engaged in that people motivated?
Thank you. I think at the very foundation, certainly a faithful response to the 8th commandment, that you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. This is a key piece to our theological reflection. And as Lusungu said, the motivation is not always necessarily positive, but as people wrestle with what it means to be faithful to this commandment, this is a key piece. We have recently developed a new resource as a contribution to the 500th observance of the Reformation, and it is a contemporary Lutheran approach to interreligious relations, and it lifts up 4 of Luther's theological principles as a framework, and that also provides a theological rationale for engagement. But I think, let me offer a couple of practical instances of motivation to not bear false witness against your neighbor, to give you a sense of how interreligious relations are occurring in some of the contexts in the ELCA. There is an Islamic center in North Pittsburgh that conducts its daily prayers and its Friday prayers at the parish hall at Trinity Lutheran Church. This is one example of many where we know that neighbors are actually sharing worship space as a sign of hospitality for a number of reasons, perhaps because the Islamic Center is under construction, or perhaps because they simply need the space. But that is one concrete example. Another is that after a hate crime in a city in California on Yom Kippur, the members of the local synagogue reached out to the members of the Lutheran Church there to ask if they might be willing to serve as guardians for them while they observed Yom Kippur the following year. This practice has continued every year since then, and relationships have deepened and developed, and together, those two communities celebrate the break fast at the Yom Kippur celebration as a way to acknowledge their friendship and relationship. So I offer these as a couple of practical examples of how people are living out this call to love their neighbor and not to bear false witness against their neighbor in our context here in the U.S.
Thank you very much, Kathryn. That really shows us that it's neighborliness. It's being neighbor to one another. I mean, Lutherans being neighbor to the others and the others being our neighbors. That is often at the core of these relationships. And we really learn how to be more deeply in these neighborly relationships. I would like to ask you, what is your most important insight or your own actually transformation that you might have experienced, surprises that you have met? Maybe Helen could start that round first. What difference does it make to be engaged in interreligious relations?
Honestly, at the very beginning, like I said the other time, at first I was not attracted to Interfaith because I had preconceived notions. But when we started, somebody said he was going to give me baptism. That was what he said, baptism of the interfaith relationship. When we started, I found out that people are just normally the same. We have same needs. We have same desires. We have everything about us as human beings are the same. So one of the things I learned, one of the things I went home with anytime we meet with these young people is that after all, we have the same needs. So for me, the bottom line is that we have the same needs. And almost everybody wants peace so that development would continue. So for me, that's what I have always said. First, we are human beings. When we talk about identity, first we are human beings. Then we think about who our religions are. So the first thing I have learned, and the most important thing, is that we have the same needs.
Thank you very much, Helen. Lusungu, what about you? What is your key insight in developing interreligious relations?
For me, I have various insights. First, since childhood, I always wanted to be a pastor in order to build peace. And I think with the work of Interfaith, I really get this chance. As a small child, I was told that Christians do not fight hate with hate, but they fight hate with love. And we have experienced a lot of hate speeches here in Tanzania, and I have been always having the chance of giving an alternative to hate speeches to people, that instead of hating our neighbor, we can show them love and show them the love of Christ and share that love. And that has been really touching to me. But I also learned how much I don't know. Even with a master's in Islam and Christian-Muslim relation, whenever I meet some Muslims, I learn something new. And it is always exciting to learn how much you do not know about the other religion and how much you as a Christian can also gain from that other religion, new insights and even understanding your Christianity better by just relating to people faith and learning the other faith of those.
Thank you very much, Lusungu. Kathryn, what is your most important insight as you engage in interreligious relations?
Thank you. There are 3 insights that I would like to lift up as learnings from our context. One is that relationships that are built over time are a firm foundation for engagement and outreach in the aftermath of a crisis. So, for example, the relationships that we had with Muslims prior to September the 11th, 2001 were key for engagement after the fact. In 2012, when there was a shooting rampage at a Sikh temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, relationships with Sikhs in that community also served to further the common good, both in that context and nationally. The second is that the value of interreligious relations for Lutherans cannot be overstated. And of course, we know that the paradox is that by authentically engaging with others, we become more deeply grounded in who we are. And this strengthens both our faith and our witness as we seek areas of collaboration for common concern and for the sake of the world. And the third insight that I would lift up is that I think that the intersection between ecumenical relations and interreligious relations is one of the great challenges for our church today. that the question of what it means to be Lutheran or what it means to be Christian within a multi-religious world is a deeply important question to be asking. In John 17:21, when Jesus prayed that they may all be one, so that the world may believe that you sent me, this prayer does not present a uniquely Lutheran challenge, but of course as Lutherans we have some unique gifts to offer within the ecumenical context about how to engage in effective contextual interreligious relations. So those are the three insights that I would lift up.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kathryn, and to all of you. I think this really short panel really shows us already the richness of gifts that we have when it comes to interreligious relations in the Lutheran communion. You engage as committed people, as faithful Lutherans, and through that engagement, you find your own Lutheran identity strengthened, but also you find your relationships to the others strengthened, and thereby you build communion, neighborliness, and we hope that in the LWF we can develop and deepen this even further. Thank you very much for your attention, and we look forward to your questions and comments. Thank you.